Hello again, and welcome to the 1 December 2017 edition of Portsmouth This Week. Our special guest today is Dave Mclaughlin. Dave is the Executive Director of Clean Ocean Access, and one of the folks that is advising the town of Portsmouth on our single-use plastic bag issues and ordinances. Dave, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Nice to meet you.
Can you tell me, you just started to tell me, but can you tell me a little bit about your background and how you got into this?
Right. So I moved to Newport, Rhode Island in 1985. Before then I lived out in Hawaii, which is where I started riding waves and really developing a passion for ocean activities. So I'm a graduate of Rogers High School. I went to school in Florida and studied mathematics and environmental and atmospheric science. And I've been back here in Newport for the better part of the last 20 or so years. I had a career working at Hasbro Toy Company in information technology.
Okay.
At the time, I started Clean Ocean Access with a few friends in 2006. We turned it into a nonprofit in 2014. At that time, I switched my jobs and became the executive director.
Yeah.
So here we are today.
Well, that's great. Sounds like you get a good background for it, though.
Yeah, I'm really appreciative to understand how to run a business in terms of brand recognition, awareness, communications.
You have all those marketing and other issues of any organization.
Super important.
Yeah. Now, what exactly does Clean Ocean Access do? I know on your website, and it's true, the three functions are Clean Ocean Access, are in the name of the organization. Can you explain what you do?
Right, so we're really trying to take action so that the things that we enjoy today, people can enjoy them tomorrow. Through both education, outreach, advocacy, field work, relationship building. We use those as the vehicles to achieve positive change for the CLEAN program, which is about addressing marine debris in the ocean, the OCEAN program, which is about improving water quality, both the kind that you drink as well as the kind that you swim in, and the Access program is about making sure that you can get to the coastline to enjoy ocean activities. The Access program now includes things like resiliency and ecosystem connectivity. So all the programs are held together by different actionable things, whether it's, as I mentioned, the education, the advocacy, the community building. So those are the things that we work on. We primarily have a footprint on Aquidneck Island, although we occasionally help to facilitate things off island.
Is one of the things you do beach cleanup? Because I've seen there every month there's a couple of beaches on the island that are targeted.
So we formed as an organization, and our issues were related to access to the ocean along the cliff walk, as well as an awareness of water quality issues.
Yeah.
We did a beach cleanup in the fall of 2006 because someone asked us to host it, and we thought it'd be a good way to meet people.
Sure.
Since that time, we removed over 105,000 pounds of debris from the shorelines of Aquidneck Island, as well as a little bit in Jamestown and Little Compton.
Yeah.
In 2014, when we became a nonprofit, we realized that if we wanted to say we were Aquidneck Island based, we had to make sure that we were in Portsmouth just as much of the time. So we run a beach cleanup up here in Portsmouth once a month, 8 or 9 months out of the year. And we also monitor all the rights of ways up here as well. So the beach cleanups for Clean Ocean Access is really the gateway to the organization. It's where people get involved, make that connection, and then from there we find out what are other things that people are interested in.
Yeah.
It could be events, it could be water quality, you name it, But yeah, so we're up here as much as we need to. I actually got an intern today working on some challenges that we have with a few of the access points on the island. So.
Yeah, that's always an issue on the island.
Yeah. Well, if you can't get to the water, it's hard to enjoy
especially when you're supposed to be able to have public access. And
Right.
I would say that's also part of your education thing, because I know I've been involved in beach cleanups a few years ago. As part of my wife is a returned Peace Corps volunteer, and that group, that local group, kind of helps out with that stuff. But what you learn a lot about number one, what people leave in the beach, which is unbelievable. You couldn't believe it unless you saw it.
Right.
So I would say that covers a good chunk of almost all your missions.
Yeah, absolutely. And I look at the beach cleanups as being incredibly important, but it's really the basis of what I call a community-based, data-driven process where people get involved, they see the impact that mankind's having on the environment, and that allows us to use the data to try to influence change.
Yeah.
Everywhere that Clean Ocean Access is going today, is because there's a community behind it that says this is the things that we want to do. So, in 2014, we addressed the issue of smoking on the beaches because we had found so many cigarette butts. And the other initiatives that we're working on fall in that same lineup.
Well, thank you for doing all that stuff because it's desperately needed.
Well, thanks for doing those cleanups and also the service that your wife has done.
Particularly because we're an
Peace Corps.
island. We're an island, guys.
Yeah.
We have to protect our water access. What we're going to talk about today a little bit is single-use plastic bags. And the reason is our town, Portsmouth, is considering an ordinance, which I understand you're advising on, to ban the use of these bags. How does that fit into your mission?
Right. So part of eliminating marine debris is about changing human behavior and becoming a more sustainable society, reducing the amount of material we're using and moving in the direction of durable, reusable materials. We found since 2013, we found over 15,000 plastic bags scattered along the shoreline. So again, it's community-based, data-driven. We decided that it made sense to try to put in place an ordinance to eliminate single-use plastic bags, not so much to address the problem of the bag itself, but to create a platform that really starts to foster environmentally responsible behaviors and makes people think about all single-use material in their daily lives. When you start to remember your reusable shopping bags, you start to bring a reusable cup, and then you start to wonder, why do I have these other things in my life that I just throw away every time? If you think about sustainability in the most basic senses, we either are going to get more stuff or we're going to use less stuff. And on a planet of a finite size, we can't just keep getting more. We've got to be a little bit more innovative on what we do.
So the issue really is not just plastic bags, but that's something you can kind of get your hands around?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a great starting point of a much larger discussion. The town's going through great efforts right now to address how to handle trash and waste management, and I think all these things come together is that at the end of the day, the landfill in Johnston is filling up, and we can do something here locally to have an impact to make sure that it doesn't completely fill up. Whether it's reusing materials, recycling materials, composting, they all come together to reduce our waste footprint, and for us that directly impacts ocean health because it just statistically reduces the chance of litter becoming marine debris and impacting the ocean.
We're also in Portsmouth, as you know, going through a trash issue anyway.
Sure.
And I think the more people can look at themselves as stewards of all this stuff and trying to help, the better. I think apparently you've been effective in getting the word out because Newport and Middletown have already passed ordinances banning bags.
Right, Newport and Middletown as well as Jamestown as well. Barrington started in 2013, which we were a part of, and now we're working with neighboring communities in
Tiverton, I understand.
Bristol, North Kingston, and hopefully South Kingston pretty soon.
Yeah, just a little bite at a time, I guess, is the way you have to look at it. Why are plastic bags so bad for the environment? I mean, what is it about them that...
Well, it's interesting what's so bad about plastic bags. So there's two words right there, right? Plastic in the bags. I think plastics are an amazing innovation and provide huge benefits to society today. Think of the medical and technology industries.
Sure.
So plastics have a great purpose, but it comes with a responsibility. When you think about a plastic bag that's used to move product from the point of sale at a store to get it into your car, you're really using an item that's going to be used for 1 or 2 minutes, and the item itself is designed to last for thousands of years. They have a low value when it comes to recycling. They're not really recycled, they're downcycled into other materials that might last once or twice, like Trex tiling for benches or perhaps a playground set. But once that material breaks, it goes to the landfill. So the low recycling rates of plastic bags and the detrimental impact of the plastic in the environment are really the two factors that really create a situation that we need to get rid of them. And the plastic in the ocean, it's just horrible. I mean, the topic of bioaccumulation. As the plastic breaks down, it's ingested by small fish that are eaten by larger fish, and we eventually eat those fish. So there's a myriad of issues when it comes to plastics in the ocean.
I think most people are now aware of these big clumps of garbage and stuff that float around the oceans and that have plastic bags. And I understand that some countries, particularly India and China with huge populations, are just pumping this stuff into the ocean at a lot higher rate than we are in the United States. But I guess what I wonder about is, can we here on Aquidneck Island or even in Rhode Island, the little tiniest state in the Union,
Right.
By banning bags, can we really have an impact?
Well, the answer is yes. And it's about taking action, building community, and sending the right message to our neighbors. If we can demonstrate that on Aquidneck Island with the diversity that we have here, that life is still great without plastic bags, it sends the message that it's a viable path forward.
Yeah.
And if we can also see that, that the recycling rates increase on the island, the amount of bags reduce on the shoreline, it sends a really strong message that, one, it's achievable, and two, of the impact. And I think that America in general needs to be a leader. So when it comes to working with our fellow countries like India and China and the developing countries in Southeast Asia, we need to show what is possible to really move forward to protect ocean health.
Yeah.
And I think that everyone is aligned that we need to protect ocean health and reduce the amount of leakage of man-made waste into the ocean. But we've got to put this, ocean health is a time-sensitive issue. Although you can have some huge impactful statistics about how much plastic's in the ocean, to really gauge what the health of it is and the impact of the plastic.
Yeah.
It's a little bit unknown,
a little bit harder,
but
yeah.
we don't, adding more plastic to the ocean is not the direction we want to go.
Yeah. One of the things before we get into the single-use plastic bags, how do you define those? Are those basically only the kind of bags you go to the market and they put your groceries in and that kind of stuff?
Right. So what we've tried to address is exactly what you described, which is the bags that you would use at a point-of-sale transaction at a retail store to move your products from checkout outside of the store. So we're looking at this as getting the highest impact with the lowest complexity. There certainly are a lot of other plastic bags that potentially could be addressed, but for the ordinance itself, it's really addressing those bags that are used really in high volumes at checkout at retail.
And that's probably something that we can do. And I was thinking about this plastic bag issue, and I get my newspaper in a plastic bag. Every toy or thing I get that's packaged has a big plastic cover on it. But I think the kind of plastic bags we're talking about, the ones you use at the store to take your stuff home, are important, because most people just either throw those away and they end up somewhere in the landfill or something. But it's something we can actually do.
Yeah.
So I think just like your mission, I think it's got a lot of different aspects to it.
It's controllable. It's the transactions happening here on the island. When you deal with those plastic bags that come in electronics, for example, that's being packaged somewhere else, and it isn't to say that that's not achievable, but that's, that transaction's happening somewhere else where that supply chain originates, those plastic bags.
Yeah, and a lot of those are basically things that customers or normal people can't really change. This is the way they market things, the way we buy things.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about how the system works, before a ban on plastic bags. I know Clements Market has a program where they recycle, or they give people a drop-off point. Are those effective at doing anything?
Yeah, so the Restore program, which is a state program for recycling what I'll call stretchy plastic, will always stay in effect, because there's so much stretchy plastic in our world today.
Yeah.
Clemens does an excellent job of collecting that stretchy plastic, and everyone should continue to bring any stretchy plastic back to your large grocery stores or retail establishments to have it be downcycled and recycled into other material.
Okay.
Also want to say thanks to Clemens for putting the great signs out in their parking lot.
Yeah.
I think that probably has increased the amount of reusable bags that are coming out. But any plastic that's that you can stretch, you should put in the container. A good example is a Ziploc bag.
Yeah.
You should cut the Ziploc off, but the rest of it you should put into the Restore program.
Okay.
The bag you mentioned about the newspaper, that also should go back to the Restore program.
Okay. So, those are things that people can do.
Oh, absolutely.
I think it's great, because Clements is one of our top-notch place, our go-to place here in Portsmouth.
Sure.
And they do a great job at anything they start to do. I guess the question is, if you're banning the use of those single-use bags, doesn't that just add cost to the consumer? If forcing people like Clemens to come up with an alternative?
Yeah. So we really look at this as a community engagement rather than a directive from one group to another. I will say, if you look at it in a very absolute black and white point of view, if tomorrow you were to eliminate your single-use plastic bags at checkout and 100% reduce them, replace them with paper bags, one, it would cost more, and that cost would have to be passed on to someone or absorbed by someone. But that really isn't the spirit of the ordinance. The spirit of the ordinance is really to promote durable, reusable materials. Will that happen on day one? Probably not. But will it happen later on? Hopefully so. So a really important part of the ordinance is having a voluntary compliance period, which serves two purposes. One, it's for the business to figure out what model they want to adopt, but it's also to give consumers the opportunity to start to make better choices. I can speak from experience in Newport and to some extent in Middletown right now that when the ordinance is passed just over a month ago, that some people were bringing reusable bags, and today I see more people bringing them. So I think that transition from plastic to paper to less paper is already underway. It does come with a little bit of a cost, and I think at the end of the day, it's the question of the business is do you absorb that cost or do you pass it on to the consumer? In a theoretical point of view, if we get rid of the plastic and we also use reusable bags and don't have to provide paper, that should actually help the business as well.
Yeah, and I think that's probably where we eventually want to go.
Yeah, it is. I mean, these things don't happen overnight. I'm a realist before I'm an environmentalist. So.
Now, it's interesting because I guess it's in Middletown, Aldi's.
Yeah.
They don't use single-use plastic bags, so people bring their things in. But if, like me, you forget it, you can buy a heavier-duty plastic bag for like 10 cents.
Right.
So I mean, it's even though there might be a slight cost to the consumer, it's not that onerous, I would say.
Yeah, and the topic of cost is something that we did explore, but without state enabling legislation, we weren't really interested in putting in a fee. There are other communities as well as countries that have put in a fee for any bag that's provided at checkout as a means to deter people and really incentivize them to bring a reusable bag. Yeah. And perhaps at a statewide level, that might be something that's explored. But at a local level, we thought that a straight-out ban on the bag was the right way to go.
Yeah, I would think this is a great place to start, and hopefully people will get used to taking their own bags in there.
Yeah, I mean that's what it's all
about.
about.
And the thing is, I think people need to know that by doing this, there's a bigger purpose here that they're contributing to. Now, what was interesting is we did a survey in Portsmouth, and I think we had about 700 or 800 people took this thing, which was a lot for Portsmouth. 2/3 agreed with the need for a ban on those bags. But what was interesting was 45% of people say they take their own bags already. Right. So that's a pretty good percentage.
Yeah, it's really good. And it'd be interesting to kind of marry up those numbers against what great stores like Clemens or Dollar Tree are actually experiencing in terms of how many bags they're providing to the customers, and if that actually jives in terms of how many people took the survey.
Yeah.
But that's a great start. 45% of the people that took. We just need to get that up to about 90 to 95.
And the thing is, I'm much older than you, so I can remember when we only had paper bags.
Right. Life was still good, right?
Life was good. No, we thought it was good. Big difference. But what's the downside to using paper bags? I know they cost more, but
yeah. Well, I would say that I say this anecdotally because I don't know it from a fact, but I don't see a lot of new technologies being put into paper bags. But I mean, they're certainly made out of recyclable material now. But if the direction as a community as a whole was we want to go to having paper bags, I think that business would reunite and reimagine and reinvent how we make paper bags, and it would become a much more efficient value chain and supply chain operation. That isn't necessarily where we think that we should be going. Yeah. It's really about durable, reusable materials. The reality about a paper bag versus a plastic bag is if you took one right now and you threw it in your backyard in a contained environment, the reality is in the springtime the plastic bag would be blowing around and the paper bag would probably look like leaves.
Yeah.
And then next year at this time, the plastic bag would still be blowing around and the paper bag would probably be gone. the paper goes back to the earth. So it's not the worst alternative, but it's certainly not something that we're advocating for. I completely acknowledge that there probably has been an uptick in paper bags on Aquidneck Island because of the bag ordinance, but the idea is that it will eventually go back down.
Yeah, and it's probably just getting people used to the idea of taking bags with them. I mean, it's just something we haven't done most of our life.
Yeah.
And it's just a new way of, in other words, you have to kind of consciously, my car is full of heavy duty bags for that exact reason. But I think it's something the public needs to get used to.
Behavior change is tough.
Yeah, exactly. Cultural things, societal things are tough.
My mom tells me it's somewhere in between impossible and very hard. And I agree with her.
Yeah.
I have friends who personally tell me that they support the bag ordinance, and I was thrilled. And then I saw them in the grocery store a few days after it was passed in Newport, and they didn't have their reusable bags.
Yeah.
And so they walked out with like 6 paper bags.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that I think that people believe in something, but then taking the action is the next step.
Yeah.
And I think that having a law in place sends the right message. And hopefully someday it just becomes common sense, like jaywalking. I mean,
Yeah.
it's still a law. You never would take that off the books.
It's got to become a habit, kind of.
Yeah.
So you don't even think about it. As we talked about, Newport and Middletown already have ordinances fairly, just a short time ago, these were passed. Did you advise on those as well? I know you're doing it on the Portsmouth ordinance. But
Sure. Yeah, we've been at a leadership role for all of these ordinances in the state of Rhode Island. We participated in Barrington, but we've led the charge in Newport, Middletown, Portsmouth, and Jamestown.
Okay.
So one of the things that we're trying to make sure is that there's a uniform and consistent ordinance put in place. I mean, I'll give some sympathy to a large store like CVS, who has a presence in all of these communities, but they're obviously a large chain. They need to have a consistent, uniform ordinance. A great point that was brought up working with Michael and Tracy from Clements was in Massachusetts, almost 55, 58 communities have ordinances, but there's a lot of differences between them, and that creates a problem for regional or local stores. So we're really trying to make sure that the definitions, the violations are very consistent so that people who have businesses in multiple communities can play by the same rules.
Yeah, I've often thought about that. Almost every time, towns do things that other towns have done, why we don't certainly at least look and see how they've done it.
Yeah.
Are there any differences between, say, Newport and Middletown's ordinance that are peculiar to the towns or anything?
I think one of the things that will always be a difference is that the enforcement of the violations and the violations themselves is really up to the discretion of the council and the town.
Okay.
If they want to have more of a tiered violation approach, or they want to go to a straight out fee on the business, that's really up to them, as well as who enforces the ordinance. That's up to the business, the communities as well. Should it be the planner? Should it be someone in public works? Should it be the police?
Yeah.
That's really up to the administration.
Now, what are you recommending to Portsmouth? How would we, that was my next question, is how do you enforce a ban like this?
Right. Well, really, the enforcement's easy because what we're really talking about here is a store either providing plastic bags after a given date or not. So
Right.
in the city of Newport, I experienced 2 stores really just by looking in the parking lot, and I saw bags with their name on it. So I sent a message to the city manager. The city manager followed up on it. I'm really not that interested in what happened next. I'm just interested in the result. So I think that a communication probably needs to happen, and then there needs to be some type of follow-up.
Okay, now would that be something that would be included in an ordinance, for example?
Yeah, the enforcement and the violation section are a part of the ordinance.
Now, how long do you anticipate this development process will be for our town?
I think it would be very short. We've already provided a draft ordinance for the town of Portsmouth.
Okay.
It just needs to be codified and approved by the solicitor. But theoretically speaking, if the council made a decision in January to go forward with an ordinance, I would think that you would have a voluntary compliance period for months.
Yeah.
Block Island just passed an ordinance in November, and it's going to go live next November.
Okay.
For the environmentalist, you might be impatient, but why can't it happen tomorrow?
Yeah.
But 10 years from now, you look back and you'll say, hey, it's been in place for 9.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting that I think people in Portsmouth are ready for this ordinance, and I think places like Clements, which is probably our primary user there. But it seems to me also that why don't the states have ordinances? Wouldn't wouldn't that make all the towns be consistent?
Yeah, and one of the things that we're trying to do is to show that Aquidneck Island, from a leadership point of view, that the ordinance is viable, it's practical, it works, and it has a positive impact. Now that we've gotten 2, hopefully 3 of the communities on board, along with Jamestown, hopefully Tiverton soon, and Bristol, is that we want to reach out to our state General Assembly representatives and ask them to reintroduce the bill in the 2018 session, but do it with the mindset of how it has a broader impact about promoting sustainability and really a marine debris reduction component.
Yeah.
And that will position us so that we can get it for a statewide ban.
Yeah, we are the ocean state after all, so
Yeah.
we should have something like that. And is there any reason why our state government would not want to do this?
Well, I think with anything like this, it's a question of economics. Is it going to cause a cost to the business or a consumer that's going to create a hardship that's going to impact jobs? I personally don't think it will.
Yeah.
I think that people can become slightly bit more responsible, bring reusable bags. I think businesses in turn will realize that it saves them money for carrying costs. It simplifies the checkout process because reusable bags are sturdy and they're durable and they last. So I think it's a win-win for business, the consumer, and most of all for the environment to move forward with eliminating single-use plastic bags.
We did have a conversation with one of our state reps about this subject. And he said, well, people can drive to Fall River and there's no bag ban. You go to the New Market Basket and they're using bags.
Right.
And to me, my answer was, so what?
Yeah.
That's just because they're not doing something properly, or not doing the right thing, doesn't mean we shouldn't.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think, so probably what we'll see in the future is just a continual municipalities coming up with their own ordinance.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that people should really shop at Clements and bring their own reusable bag.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely
what they should do.
Listen, thanks so much, Dave, for coming on the show today. I hope you'll come back in about a year and just let us know how it's all going.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. Thank you again.
Okay, thank you, and have a great Christmas season.
You as well. Happy holidays.
And thanks very much. We'll see you next time on Portsmouth This Week. Just wanted to let everybody know that the Newport Navy Choristers, under the direction of Lori McDowell, are presenting Christmas in Song, a Christmas concert to benefit the Portsmouth Historical Society on December 8th, Friday, 2017 at 7:30 p.m. at St. Barnabas Church in East Main Road in Portsmouth. This is going to be a great concert, and it's a great way for everyone to get into the Christmas spirit. Tickets are currently on sale. They're on sale through any Portsmouth Historical Society board member. You can go online to the website at www.portsmouthhistorical.org, or you can call Rich Zalipsky at 401-643-0382. I hope to see you there for this great family and community event. Doug Smith signing off.